kids who are screaming. They're in diapers, feeding tubes, walkers. They could look scary if you don't know who they are. I can teach anyone just about anything. And the best I've ever felt is watching them become such a loved part of the community. A spot where the fifth graders had to write an essay of why. I cried when I read it. I don't really have a best friend, and I've always wanted one. And I thought this could help me make friends. And I have so much love to give. I had a little boy one time who he just hit, and I'm little and he was big at 5, and he would just beat me up. And it was just pure fear.
Welcome everybody to Learning with Lowell. New York City public schools have over 1 million students and over 200,000 of them being special needs students. Have you ever wondered what it's like behind those closed doors of a special needs classroom in New York City? Today we're pulling back that curtain. Tara, with 15 years of experience as a special needs teacher, is here to give us an exclusive inside look at the triumphs, challenges, and raw moments that most people never see. Prepare for a journey that's both heartwarming and heartbreaking, showing how much work goes into being a special needs teacher, demonstrating for anyone looking to pursue this career what it takes to be the best, and for everyone else giving a slice of life into a role and work that is getting ever and ever harder to do. Let's dive in and stay curious on this episode of Learning with Lowell. What does a typical day or week look like for you?
Okay, so picture yourself on stage on Broadway. Your audience are 5-year-olds. They give you balls to juggle, hoops to do at the same time, and they light you on fire. That's what teaching is like during a day. There is everything coming at you at once, and you're not dealing with adults for the most part. You're dealing with little ones, so everything is a crisis. I got a boo-boo. I need a Band-Aid. My world's going to end. She didn't talk to me. I don't know how to read that book. It's amazing. You are on stage 7 hours straight a day.
At any point in this conversation, if you find value in it, please subscribe. It is hugely beneficial, and it tells Google and everyone out there that this is content worth watching. Thank you for everyone thus far who has commented.
And I love it. I absolutely love it, but it is so exhausting that at the end of the day, you're kind of limping out of there.
How have you been able to do that for, I think it's like 15, 17 years? Like, 17. I just feel like mentally, geez, I don't know how you like deconstruct at the end of the day.
It's summers. You take your summers and you completely decompress. I'm doing it not because there wasn't another field that I wanted to get into. I'm doing it because I just really, really love kids. And I'm one of those people, I walk down the street and it's one of those, everybody's got different skills. Mine, a baby will see me, a toddler will see me, and they just make eye contact and they just go straight for me with their arms out, and parents are saying, what is happening? So that happens to me in my classroom. They're just sucker fish to my body everywhere. It's incredibly loving. We laugh all day long. So how do you give that up? How do you give up all of that? And watching them learn when it clicks on, when you find the key to figure out inside their brain, that's my favorite thing. How do you give that up?
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of like mental Tetris in the sense, because there's so many different ways that people learn. So yeah, and you kind of have to be conversational in all of them just to do a good job as a teacher. I know, like when I was going through, I don't know, like if there's even more learning styles. Now, like we've gotten maybe even more granular, but there was there's some people who learn best by like reading it, so like maybe on the board or something. There's some people who learn best by seeing it, like if there's like a visual aid or like a video, and some people just learn well by doing it. Like if you just like give them a box and you say, this is kind of what you're trying to do, and then you just leave them alone. I don't know if there's any other learning strategy you have to do, but if you have I imagine you have like 20 kids and you have to apply all those different things at the same time, like that's a lot, like mentally, just to like organize that, structure that. So I guess I'm kind of curious, have we discovered any other learning strategies as well outside of those three?
That's fantastic that you thought of that, because a lot of people, even teachers going in, don't. And that is key for teaching. So visually, they've got to see it. Almost 99% of teaching is auditory, and most kids can't learn that way. If I'm just lecturing you, and you're not visually watching it. So visual, auditory, and then tactile. If you're taking notes, if you're drawing out and sketching what I'm saying, that gets it into your brain. And then kinesthetic, the getting up and, all right, we're doing a math problem. Let's go. I've got 7 birds. Start tweeting. Okay, 3 fly away. Show me. You fly away. And they're moving and doing. How many are left? So you put in all 4 modalities all the time. And I find that after this many years, even when an adult asks me for directions to go somewhere, I will tell them, I will send them a text with it, I'll draw a picture, I'll create an interpretive dance, I'll do whatever it takes to get in there. And it's a little much, so it's great for 5-year-olds. But when I'm dealing with an adult, I have to remember, oh wait, yeah, they don't need all that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they especially with like TikTok and stuff nowadays, like they might be going back. Our attention spans might be going back to that level, so that skill might still be useful with dealing with parents as like time goes on.
It's so fun. But I can teach anyone just about anything, and so I just need to know how your brain works. And my 2 favorite things: the key to your emotional health, and then the key to how your brain processes and takes in information. So primarily at the beginning of the school year, that's what I am. I am all in with trying to figure you out. I have a lot of students who are, emotionally disturbed, and pretty significantly so, and they're 5. COVID made it much, much, much worse for little ones, for everyone. But emotionally, they'll come to me. They've been hitting, biting. Their families don't know what to do with them. They're kids who everybody's throwing diagnoses at, right? Oh, you're autistic. Oh, you're ADHD. You're this, you're this, you're this. So I get in there and just say, everybody back away. Just give me 2 weeks. Come to me. All right. You are going to succeed with me. So if I'm teaching you something, I'm not going to let you fail. I'm not going to let you flounder. You can trust me. And so building that trust, they fall deeply in love, which they're 5. They want to fall in love with you. They need a connection. They need to feel emotionally safe before they can learn anything. And so I just want everybody to back up and let me have this child and talk to me. What do you love to do? All right, let's get on the ground and do that. And I actually enjoy it. I see they're human beings, and I want to know what hurts and what feels good and emotionally and what they need to feel safe. And then there goes through the phase where they're just stuck to me. They're suckerfish to me because I'm safety. An example, little girl, first day of school last year, came in. Parents were there. All the parents leave. All the kids go off to the rug. I have a co-teacher who's incredible. And this one little girl sobbing, and she just couldn't do it. So I bent down and said, made sure she knew my name. I'm eye contact. I'm little anyway, but eye contact, and her mom was there crying, and I just said, you are so brave. You're so brave, because this is scary and this is big, and you don't know where to sit and who to talk to and if it's going to be okay. And you can sit with me and you can hold my hand until you don't need to. And I am going to help you find friends, and we're going to be all right. Do you want to come with me? And I'll put my hand out. And when she's ready, put her hand in there, gave her a little hug. All right, let's go. But remember, you can stay next to me as long as you want. And I think just having that human connection of, all right, if it all goes to hell, I'm going to be okay. Someone's going to help me. Mm-hmm. So that's primarily.
Really powerful.
It is. You should see these kids. These kids go from, children who can't go to family events, who are screaming, who hit their parents. And I'm not blaming the parent. I am a parent, so I am a full parent advocate. But like you said, parents have not been trained in this field. So I will actually I just love to get inside their heads and figure out what's the key. What's the key to your lock? How do I get in there? And as soon as you do that, their whole world opens up. And then the families come in crying, like, I can't believe it, I have a child, my child is back.
Mm-hmm. How are you able to just look at them? I imagine it's like to some extent, like you're saying, you just kind of like the child whisperer, like horses or something. But how much?
It's weird.
Sometimes I wonder to like, how do you know? How do you? So if a kid already has like some way of going about things to help them open up and talk to you, how do you then like balance that with like maybe expose them to different learning styles or different things so they can maybe discover new things about their brain? Because I think sometimes it's like really easy to like, oh, I'm gonna like only be learned in one way, but like you're saying, like the world's very multifaceted. Like you're never gonna see just visual or just text or all these different things.
Yeah.
So then, like, how do you balance like diving in with potentially like moving the needle on like what they can learn from, or do you just like focus on what they can learn from and just like live in there? Because that already is a huge accomplishment. Like focusing on what they're doing, what they can learn, and in the way.
The point, yeah, wow, you're good at this. Yes, so you first find that and you create that emotional safety. Some children, I will immediately find their best friend. I have a best friend for you. You haven't met them yet, but they're amazing and they can't wait to meet you. They want to be my best friend? Yes, let's go meet them. Come on. Guess what? We're going to play. And then I'll play with them. So I'm the draw, bring them in. Okay, what do you love to do? What do you love to do? Let's put it together. And we'll play together. And I'll teach them, oh, physically, you face this way. You turn your body. You do this. This is how we share. Time for that. Time for that. Ask them, we could ask them a question like this. So it's teaching them social language, teaching them appropriate interaction. Sometimes you have to go out to recess and hang out with them there and play and teach them how to interact. They don't know. It's not instinctive for children who are on the spectrum, for children who have been inside during COVID for so long. They have to learn how to play. And I can tell you what they want more than anything in the world is a best friend. You, if you're doing anything, if you're going to a professional development, if you're going to a yoga class, if you're going anywhere, everything is better with a best friend. Everything is better to have somebody that you are looking forward to seeing and talking to. So you make that happen. I teach, I'll have the class on the rug for my group lesson. Some kids need to be standing up by my side with one hand on top of theirs, and we're doing the pointer and we're saying all the sounds. Some kids need to be leading it from the back and holding the cards up. I just have to, it's like a running race. I have to run really, really fast at the beginning to figure it out and hopefully not miss it. And I'm sure I do, and then I pick it up later, but that's how the world opens up for them. Oh, now they're leading this reading lesson, and they feel so good, and they go home and they tell mom they're leading it, and oh, suddenly they can learn. They're not so scared. They can pick up the book. Now they can pick up a book and read with a friend. So that's how you open it up. You really go for what do they love, and you find it in every area of the day, and you utilize that.
It sounds like if you were to make a lesson plan that it wouldn't be necessarily like mile markers in the sense of like, oh, for the first 2 weeks I do this, for the first 2 weeks, then the next. It sounds like the biggest thing is you can take as long as possible, as long as needed to understand how each kid works, and then start bringing them up from there. So like, I know when I was in school, like it was always just kind of like a chop shop, like all right, like chop, and you could tell, you could just visibly, I could see like the kids who weren't getting it, and the teacher, who had a lot on their mind, and they had their lesson plan and stuff. So it's like, it sounds like your lesson plan would be more like fluid in the sense of like more like phases. Like, all right, we've gotten everyone on the same page. We all understand how to talk to each other. Now I can start teaching you like numbers, or I don't know what the five kindergarten equivalent of like different things they can learn. But they're sponges. Like their mirror neurons are pretty great. Like it's probably their best time of their lives for learning.
It is, and when you open that up, when they feel safe and then they allow themselves to open up, it's incredible. So they go from not knowing how to write their name, not knowing the letter sounds, their phonological awareness, not knowing how to count 10 objects, how to line up 10 objects and count them. They start there. And then by the end of the year, they're writing 3-page papers, which are really cute, really, really cute. They can read, we call it a DE level, which is it's got a couple lines of text on each page. It's big, and that is, they need direct instruction. And I think and a lot of it's one-on-one. So that's where I grab small groups who are learning similarly, or if I have to do one-on-one and really boost a child. But to me, if they can leave that school year, feel really good about themselves, and it made huge emotional social gains and opened themselves up to learn, we've succeeded. The problem is then, I'm such an emotional, like that's, a social worker a long time before becoming a teacher. So once they leave me, sometimes that's hard to continue. So that's my goal, and that's what I'm trying to get better at, is being able to transfer what I do with them into their next grade and their next teacher.
Yeah, I'm reflecting on this as you're talking about it. And it's like, wow, this is like, you're like almost getting from like 0 to 60. It feels like they're almost like high school level. I mean, sure, there's refinement and stuff, but to go from where they started to being able to write, pages of stuff, that's that's monumental. And like, there are people in college that couldn't write very well in college, and so like to get them that far within like just a year, that's huge. And I was just thinking, like, wow, like the huge detriment is the next teacher that will come in, because like I heard her saying once that a 4.0 student is not a 4.0 student because of teachers. It's like the 4.0 student is a 4.0 student despite bad teachers. Like that's how it works. Like there are great teachers that are great like yourselves, but then they have to like like a 4.0 student basically knows how to navigate the bad ones.
Yeah.
And like my wife's great at that. I'm not. I'm like kind of like I'm the same with everyone, which is not great. Kind of have to like know how to talk to everyone.
But you're authentic.
Yes.
You are.
Well, teachers didn't like me when I was younger, but so then how? It does sound like if there was like a way to bottle what you do and just like almost like craft a curriculum, not curriculum, but like the way that we teach everyone after you, it'd be so much different. Like I can't even imagine. Like if we I almost just want to give you like carte blanche for a whole school system and just like see what would happen over like 5 years. It'd be so crazy.
I mean, I would love to do that, kind of moving on next career-wise, I guess. I don't have it fleshed out. I wish I did. But I love working with the kids. I love working with other teachers, and there have been teachers in the school many times. Okay, I can't get him to listen. All right, well, let's look where his seating is on the rug, and let's whisper in his ear and say what's happening, and let's give him a whiteboard so he can also respond every single time like he needs to, but doesn't disturb. Let's go in and give some positive reinforcement. I love working with teachers. I work a lot with families. So I have a student, and they come with every problem, right? The families, because if you're successful with their child, then they open up to you and say, I can't get them to take a shower without a battle. I can't get them to enter the door of my parents' house for a family reunion. I can't. So, all right, well, let's talk about a shower. What are the steps? Do they understand the steps? Let's make sure they do. And shouldn't be stressful. This should be fun. So they get to go out and find some high interest toys that they can bring in the shower. And here's a list written down. I'll do it for you. I'll create it. And you can move the little, the arrow for everything. Okay, first I take the soap, and then I take the towel. Give them what they need. Scaffold everything. And then as they don't need it, take it away, and make sure that whatever you're teaching them, they're successful. Because would you want to enter into something with someone you don't know if you're safe with, right? You're in a classroom, you don't know the teacher. They ask a question, you're not sure. You say it and they go, no. Are you ever raising your hand again? No. And I get it. I mean, I am probably not the best reading teacher. I am probably not the best math teacher. I'm sure there are people who are much, much better than I am at that in many ways. But I don't think there's someone who, if there is, I want to meet them and learn from them. But getting inside a child's head and loving them for exactly who they are and managing my expectations for who they are.
It sounds like you're like a learning expert. Like you're like not only are you like a kid whisperer, because like kids have to trust you and vice versa, but it's also the element of like, if I were to distill what it seems like you're really great at, it's like you're able to learn with them versus like learn at learn at them. I don't know how that would work out as a sentence.
You're exactly right.
It seems like, so maybe like you could be like medium or average on all these other things, but it's okay because you know how to work with them on that. And then other
Right.
teachers are going to be the same way, but like you're teaching them like those core fundamental blocks. And I was curious. I am curious about how like that parent teacher relationship works. Because I have friends who are teachers, and it's almost like the kids who get good grades are the ones that have the parents that just like bludgeon the teachers. You know, like just come at them a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that at your level, I don't know if they have grades or not. So it's really just more like how can kids develop the best possible. So like maybe you don't get that from teachers, but like how do you navigate that relationship when there's some people who are like helicopter parents, I hear, and then you have some
Yeah.
people that are just going to be like, well, not my Timmy, and then
Yep.
you know, like so it's like another element with each individual parent structure. So then how does that work?
I entered teaching as my second career. So I had two children. And it's really hard to be a parent. It's just really hard. It is. And I love it and it's amazing. But I give absolute full mad respect to parents. Single parents especially, which is what I did. I can hear I have heard over the past some teachers, oh, that parent didn't even send in gloves for recess and their child's hands are cold. So I kept them in for recess. Buy them gloves. Bring gloves in. Why blame the parent? Maybe they don't have the extra $10 this month. I mean, you got to put your judgments to the side, and you have to meet the parents where they are. I love working with parents. I really do. I think it's my age. I'm old. I'm older than most of my little ones' parents, so there's, I think, some respect kind of built in, which should not be. I mean, that's not why I deserve the respect, but I do think coming in as a mom of a 21 and a 25-year-old and having taught 17 years and being older and not having an attitude. I don't care if you're coming from this incredibly well-to-do family or not. What do you need and how do we get you there? And the helicopter parent, what's going on? What do you need? What are you worried about? Okay, let's work there. The parent who has never shown up for a child's event ever, maybe they can't, right? Maybe they're 45 minutes away and at night it's not very safe and they can't get there. So do you get them cab fare? Do you get them an MTA card to get there? Do you send them extra reminders and just understand she works nights and she's a single mom? You know, what does she need?
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm probably a little like your wife, because you were saying she can kind of pick up on people, and I love that. I personally look for, in every person, I don't look for what I need in you. I look for what I can love or respect in you, and that's where I focus. So I think I do that with the parents as well. And
Yeah,
I've only
sounds,
in 17 years I've had two parents that were very difficult. And I think there was some mental illness and there were some other factors and it was really tough, but
yeah, it sounds like that's a like I much just wish we could like bottle what you do and have teachers or some like you know like have like a 2 week summer camp where it's like it's not like you teaching them, but then you just like it's like you're kind of like teaching them blocks, but they don't realize it. Because sometimes people are, but there's like a pride that stops them from being open to education, and so but if you can get parents open to new things, and they're probably like, oh, you know, I've been doing my best, and you know, someone coming in and saying like, hey, there's a better way, or like, hey, I can help you, let me help you out there. Like that, there's probably like a little bit of friction there, a little bit of resistance. But when they see the results of it, then it's like, okay, hey, I can trust this person. Because that's another thing as well. It's like there's a lot of people that say good things, but then can they do the good things? And so you have like the 1-2 punch of that. Like, hey, I'm saying the good things, but then you can back it up with the action. It almost just feels like you need to have like there's a way to like give them like a booklet, like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I've been able to do. Like,
help me do that.
I can show you this. Yeah, like here's my track record. You know, like this is the difference between like some way to like metricize it or like demonstrate it or something. If there's like kids that could like give examples of the writing that they're going to do at the end of the year versus the beginning and stuff, like, but they'd have to like give consent or whatever. But I think giving either like a Google Doc of that or something to a parent, like breaking down that wall, and then to other teachers as well. I think sometimes it's really hard to differentiate. You know, I can imagine if you're a single mom or a single parent and you have all that stress, and then you're trying to take care of your kid, and you feel like you're not doing good enough, and then the kid's coming home, and it's like, how do I help? How do I help them? How do I even ask the question of how to help them? Because like you ask the question wrong, and they say fine. You know, like that's what I hear all the time. Like kids just say fine if you don't ask the question right. And there's like I've heard people say that you don't ask like if they had a good day. You ask like, did you ask good questions, or did the teacher what did the teacher talk about today? Like if you ask them like you have to like kind of like work around it. Apparently, like I don't have kids at that, but I've told that like you have to kind of like be a little bit of like a wizard to like get around like the fine response. Because if they give you this fine response, it's like them telling you didn't ask the right questions essentially or something. Like you have to like go in a different way.
It is so tricky. Every parent we have, it's funny, you say you don't have children, but you're spot on. Every parent we have will say, my child comes home and just says, today was fine, it was good, she's funny, and that was it. Really specific. So what was, did Tara do blah, blah, blah today? Oh, yes, she did. And then they go off on a story. And so at lunch, who did you sit next to? What were they eating? And boom, all of a sudden 5 stories from lunch come out, Mm-hmm. But that is very tricky. It's tricky for all parents. Kids just don't want to give it up. It's true, except they want to tell me everything. So, my mommy loves to drink wine. She drinks a lot of wine. And then I get all the stories and, my mommy yelled at me. Listen, being a mommy's hard business. So you go home, give your mom a hug and say, I love you. And and they do. And their moms will call and say, thank you. But I hear everything. It's funny.
It's almost like they're giving information to be even more empathetic to the parents. Because then it's like, oh, they're having these things. I'm hearing about it. And I imagine you don't like mention it to them, but then it's like, oh, I know like you're under a lot of stress right now because now I'm hearing normally you don't drink any wine. Like this week, little Timmy or little Sarah says like you're drinking a lot, so like something's going on.
Home a bottle. Yeah.
Is it still the case? No, go ahead.
Having that open communication, right? If they're going through a stressful time, I have a child I have some incredible stories I would love to tell you, but I had a child whose mom called me. She was not with the child's father at the time, but he got shot 5 times outside the deli at 8:00 in the morning. And so she calls me and she's in and out of the hospital. She's like, what do I do? What do I do? All right, send him to school. We'll take care of him. We'll talk about it. What do you want? Do you need me to get somebody to bring him home from school? I can talk to other parents in the class. So we do that. If there's an emergency, let me know, and then let's figure out how I can help. And that's the social worker. And it's probably a step too far. But you know what? I am old and I can do that. They want to fire me for going a step too far. Good luck.
Yeah. Is it still the case with teachers that like you have to like pay things for yourself, or like you have like a very minuscule budget, or are institutions being better at giving you a budget, or like however the phraseology there is, so you can take care of the students and do the things you're talking about? Basically, it's still this case where like you have to like almost take from your own pocket to do a great job, or are institutions finally like being a little bit better at supporting you in what you're trying to do?
Both. So New York City's cut their budgets, I've heard, but it doesn't affect us as much because, we're in a very wealthy school district, a well-to-do school district. My students, when I had taught the first 8 years of teaching, I taught a 12 to 1-to-1, so a smaller class with significant disabilities, medically fragile, multiply disabled, everything you can think of thrown into one. They came from nothing. They were below the poverty line. These were single parents trying to raise kids. So they came from nothing. They would be bussed in. And luckily, they won the golden ticket. They got in my classroom with a very wealthy parent body who wanted to give and wanted a way to help. And so I created those opportunities so everybody benefited. But that being said, yes, I am constantly going into my pocket and we need this today. Oh, that would be fun to do. Oh, I think that would be helpful. It's a little of both.
Well, then, I know in Chicago, I was reading about this, that the wealthy school districts have like worked out their districting, so then it like cuts out the impoverished groups, and then says that like there's some that like the impoverished group will be right next to a really wealthy school, but they have to go 5 miles in the opposite direction because they've like worked it out. So the money that can afford a good school is like sequestering itself, and then they still send their kids to private school. So then it's like not only will they not let the money go to support public education for everybody, but then they send their kids to private education as well. So it's like can you pull out the ladder even further out of people? It sounds
exactly
terrible.
right. Yeah, nobody else can climb it. New York City has done in the last few years it seems like they've been trying to kind of change those borders and try to make schools more inclusive. Definitely with special education, there's a big push for inclusion. So students who would have been in a separate class, so what I teach. What I have taught earlier, my first 8 years, that was a specialized class, but it was in a community school. Community school happened to be very, very well off. There are special classes in special schools. There's an entire district in New York City that is just for special classes, and there's no way that they have the money that other public schools in New York City in well-to-do neighborhoods do. So it's really the neighborhood they live in. It's 2 blocks, I think, within 2 blocks in either direction. But who's going to live within those 2 blocks? Wealthy people. They're all the housing project's 4 blocks down. So that ends up to be its own school system. But I do think they're moving a little bit towards more inclusion and integrating students a little bit better. But
I heard or read that that's really good. Well, I was watching. I don't remember how long ago this was, but I was watching this debate where parents of kids that were not specially abled did not want specially able kids to integrate with their kids because they were like, well, that specially able kid is going to get all the attention. Timmy or Sarah. I like little Timmy. I don't know why. Little Timmy, he needs attention too, and so they didn't like that. But apparently, there's studies that have shown that it's better for the both parties, the specially abled and the not specially abled, to be in the same group because they're socializing with each other. It's like they're learning empathy or something. I don't know what it is, but it seems like there's something there where they don't take from each other, they give to each other. It's what I was reading. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, so I could be wrong on this. But when you do see it in your environment, does that seem to be the case? They're both giving. It's not like no one's losing out with that arrangement.
Absolutely. It depends how you set it up, of course. I mean, my first year teaching, I came into a school and my children happened to be going to that school, so I knew it really, really well. And I got the small class, the 12 to 1-to-1 of kindergarten through 2nd graders. And at the time, they were about 18-month cognitive level each. So, you have a 5-year-old whose brain works as a young toddler, right? And emotionally, probably not far off. They ate lunch in the classroom because they were so disruptive. They didn't attend things that the other parts of the school did not through anyone not liking them or not wanting them. Luckily, that was not the case. It was just they screamed and they were loud and they didn't have any skills to navigate that. They had recess by themselves, so they really never integrated. So I wanted to change that. And I thought my daughter was in 5th grade at the time, and she would come after school every day and play with my students. And I saw the power of that. So I did what anybody would do. I bought a big toaster oven and I made brownies. And I can tell you the smell of brownies will go through a school like you can't believe. I had everybody coming to this classroom with kids who were screaming. They're in diapers, feeding tubes, walkers. They could look scary if you don't know who they are, coming in and getting brownies. And then I decided I'm going to start a mentoring program because I love the energy that the 5th graders brought. I brought a couple of my kids upstairs with little walkers and their wheelchairs, and we get their feeding tubes, and we go into the 5th grade classrooms and I've got brownies, and I say, okay, we brought brownies for everybody. So if you want to come see us once a day, at the end, my program was 45 minutes longer than the general ed. So if you want to come for that period, you've got to apply. Here's the application. And I figured if somebody applies for something, they buy in a little more. And I put a spot where the 5th graders had to write an essay of why. I cried when I read it. I don't really have a best friend, and I've always wanted one. And I thought this could help me make friends. And I have so much love to give, and I want to give my love. And it was just really amazing. We ended up with 70 out of 100 fifth graders. So I ended up having to do it multiple, during our lunch, during our recess, in every way, we became the heart of that school. And we would walk down the hall, and my kids who were kind of invisible before, or a deterrent, right? Or people were deterred by them. Now people are yelling, "Hi, I love you. I'll see you on Tuesday." But then I thought, okay, fifth graders, then they're leaving the school. So what impact is it really making? It's making an impact for them. They would write about it for their essays to get into middle schools, which you have to do in New York City. But I needed to start in kindergarten, in a general ed kindergarten. So a friend of mine was teaching a class down the hall, and I had her kids come for cooking because everybody loves brownies or cupcakes or cookies. None of it was healthy. All of it was something, I can't wait till we go to Tara's class and we get to make that. And I would partner all of them up with my students. And the empathy that you have to teach empathy. You have to. This is not necessarily an instinctive skill. You've got to teach it. And I had one little boy who had Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, which is a really nasty disease. And he really couldn't walk. And he would sit. He didn't want to be in his wheelchair. So he would sit on the ground at recess. And these little 5-year-old girls would come and sit with him and bring him toys and play with him. And that's what you can do. That's the power you have. If you recognize that everybody's got love that they want to give, you figure out pathways to open that up. And, I'm really proud of those programs. I think that's probably some of the best things I've ever done in my whole life, is just the best I've ever felt is watching them become such a loved part of the community.
And it has I know for older populations like the 60s and 70s, that if you just socialize with other people, it'll prevent your cognitive decline, because there's like certain cognitive decline if you're not exercising and stuff. And if you exercise and socialize, like it'll actually you can regrow. I think like you can regrow gray matter. You can like slow it down significantly. So I imagine like kids with all this plasticity in their brain, I imagine like just like getting them out and talking with other people, that socialization aspect is like, I'm curious, when you did do that, what was the educational outcomes? Were they even better at learning? Were they even more excited to learn? Because it seems like my guess would be like with older populations, if it can do that for older populations that don't have like the brains don't work the same way, and you have like this population that they're like constantly making neurons and stuff and connections. I imagine there's probably like a huge boom. For parents out there, like, well, I don't know if I'm so cool with this. Like, your kids are going to learn more and stuff, based on what I'm saying. Yeah. For like the utilitarians out there, but yeah, it sounds like I would guess that they're probably like even better learners after this.
In every way. So all of the students that I had, almost all of them started in diapers. They were all potty trained by the end. And that was because they're typically developing peers coming in. And I bought really fancy princess underpants because, if you love princesses and you want to wear them, well, then you need to go in the potty. But in every way, students who couldn't walk, right? Through physical therapy, through their fifth grade mentors coming, through going on the playground, and they really want to do what the other kids can do, and they want to get up on that slide. I taught them all to read at whatever level they were at. Their brain was wide open. They went from either screaming or being flat to their full-on personalities coming out. And that's when they can open up and learn.
And then, how often do you get the opportunity to go to other schools and kind of share what you're doing? Because it just seems like such a powerful process that you do. And I imagine some of it's just like you kind of have to like show them by doing. But like, how often do you? You have so much already on your plate, and so I imagine technically I'm like adding more to your plate by the suggestion, like, hey, why don't you go around and like teach other people when you're already doing such a great job and your plate's already full? But do you go around and show other people how you do what you're doing? Because it seems just so powerful.
It's not. Not as much as I would like. I would love that. I think that's potentially a future role that I would really enjoy. But it's just not, it's not created yet. And so I've had the superintendents over the years, New York City superintendents over the years, come in and look at my program and want to know more about it and try to do some takeaways from it. I've spoken at, we've had a lot of student teachers from Columbia University, and I've gone and spoken to them about all of this and kind of how to open that avenue of teaching that they may not have thought of, right? But not in the way that I would like to. I think you're exactly right. But it's hard. It's one of those things that, you know, you have your superpower, and that happens to be mine. But I have not perfected how to then get that to transfer. So if my students are amazing for me in class, first they're amazing because they love me and they want to please me, which is just understanding why they're doing something, right? That's just it. They fall in love. They're so happy. They want me to be happy. But then they go to a specials class, an art class, a music class, and they're under the tables and they're screaming and they're hitting. And then they come back to me, I'm sorry, Tara. Okay. I can't. It's very hard to transfer. If I'm in the art class, if I walk in, boom, behavior's beautiful. Hi, Tara, let me show you what I drew. But it's tricky. I would love to learn how to be able to transfer that more and teach that more.
Yeah, I'd love if you're, you know, if anyone's listening in or anything like this has ideas. But it sounds like people should probably get like I imagine like a surgery room where there's like a bunch of like glass and there's just people up there taking notes.
Yes.
Like, yeah, we have to give you like a special room where like there's like one-way glass. If you were just like watching it and take notes, yeah. Yeah.
We do have teachers have come in and just a lot of observation and watching and taking notes, but I don't know if that's fully transferable. I also think, as in any field, it's you know, it's a control issue, and you don't really want to be told what to do, and you want your classroom to be your fiefdom, and you want to be able to control that. I feel I had an incredible professional developer who came in, and she was tremendous, and she taught me so much. If you can teach it to me, I want to learn it. I don't have an ego with that. I don't. There's so many things I want to learn how to be better at. But I do think egos are involved and control is involved, and it's tricky. It's tricky to tell a teacher, oh, she does this really well. She's going to come in and help you with that. And they're going,
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of a parallel with like washing your hands and microbes. So before we knew that this was a thing, they were, I think it was in a birthing hospital that do C-sections and stuff. They were using the same scalpel, knives, stuff on all the women. And then they're like, what? We have like 70% mortality rate for women. And a guy was like, you know, if you just wash your hands, like the mortality rate goes down. But people didn't like that because it's basically saying that you're killing your patients with your habits.
Yeah.
And so instead of basically he would double down and just yell at people about it, and no one took it seriously. And he actually like was driven out of his job, and he was like he had to move to like a really far away to even like get a job again. But then like 100 years later, people discovered the Germans like, oh wow, he was right, and people have retroactively looked at this and said, if he gathered the data on the change and made like a scientific thing on it and then presented it, it's harder to argue with it. Like, granted, people are going to argue with it because like, people have their like pet theories and stuff. But if there's data behind it, and so I wonder to what extent there could be like an anthropological or like some like university people who are doing their theses come in and kind of just see the differences and then write it up. They get their PhD on it, and then you get like this data brick that you can show people and say, hey, this is what's going to the different methodologies are like. It seems like that could be like that type of like parallel. You know, make use of the fact that people need PhDs and then they're working on these things you're getting paid for it already by the government to come in and then try and like synthesize it into like with data and stuff over a couple of years. I imagine it'd be a couple of years though to like really grab the data and compare it to other schools and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea. I would welcome that.
Yeah. Well, anyone in the New York City area or across the world, I imagine you're open to Zoom or whatever. If you're in a PhD or you know someone who'd be interested in this, I imagine you're the person to talk to. Message me. I don't think Tara's contact information will be in the show notes, so just message me and I'll filter that through.
That would be
It
great.
does. Yeah, it does seem like an opportunity there. And then I was thinking just like what's the future of schooling for kids like K through 8, because we have all this technology, all these things coming in, and more often than not, like kids are able to learn these concepts faster than the teachers can teach it to them. But then they're stuck in class, not being able to do anything. But then just hearing this conversation and my research on it, I imagine like what you're doing is probably the most, in my opinion, like most selfishly insulated thing that should exist out there because of the benefit for the students. But I imagine from like my guess is, and I'm just making a guess here, and I'm curious what you think on this, that like you're treated more like art supplies, like an art division of things. Where like I don't know, when I was in high school, the arts were always on the chopping block for like funding cuts and all these type of things because like people weren't realizing the power of like what art can do for people, like to be able to express yourself. Like who would have thought that would be very valuable to people? But the administrators did not think this way. So I imagine similarly, like they probably target you a little bit, thinking of yourself, like thinking of what you do is like that. But of all the different things that exist K through 12, I imagine yours is the most critically important to be supported and expanded because of what we're talking about today. But I'm gonna take a guess and say like that's probably not the way it is. You're probably treated more like arts, like the art division of schools.
Luckily, I've got results on the other end with reading, with writing, with all of that critical data. And I think, to your point, it's because I've got that. And it doesn't matter whose child is running down the hallway screaming, I can go up and say, come here, let's talk. Okay. All right. It's gonna, I can pretty much calm almost any child down. Almost, not all. But so I've got those skills, and I do feel very well respected in my school, I have to say. And I feel like, there's good give and take. But that being said, if I were to go to a different school, I don't know that what I do would be respected or thought of as necessary. And that's a shame because COVID, I could tell you, these children are not the same. So they may not be on the spectrum, they may not be ADHD, they may not be emotionally disturbed, but they come in, they all have pretty significant anxiety. Many of them have learning issues because they just weren't socialized properly. They just weren't. None of us were for however many years. But when you are 2 through 5 and that's all you knew, they didn't learn how to communicate effectively in that way, right? They're with their parents or they're with their extended family only. But I see it in general education, 3rd graders with panic disorders, 5th graders with just their emotional health is primary. And I know our school wants to focus on that, but it's really a huge topic. It's gigantic. So where do you start and how do you do it? We now have so many students who just seem completely out of control. And if you think about being inside their head and feeling that scared and out of control, these aren't even special education students. These are just students across the board. So I think that developing, creating, and running a really, really strong social emotional program where students can, one, learn how to express themselves, which they don't know how to do, I can tell you. They don't have the same empathy from learning from characters in books because they don't have it. So teaching that would be huge, and that would then open up all their pathways to learn, I feel. And New York City's trying. It's just such a gigantic animal. It's so huge, and I think these things can work on a smaller scale. Like I can do it in my classroom. I know I can. But to extend that to all public elementary schools, it's tricky. We need the data, like you said. We need the data. We need it to be a set program, and that needs to be primary. Social emotional development needs to be primary.
And I think sometimes people look at these emotional elements of development when it comes to school. They're like, oh, why should I do this? Taxes. If we didn't do that, could I save like $3 per square foot on my taxes? Which, I mean, it adds up. But
Right.
empathy is probably the most useful, just in like a business sense, probably the most useful skill you can ever have. Like understanding what the other person needs and wants, so you can like either make something or have a business deal that actually work with them. Now, there's people out there that's like they're car salesmen, so they're only learning just enough to like try to like browbeat you to like buying their stuff. That's terrible. Don't do this. But
Right.
like actual business, like leading anything, is just empathy. Is can you listen to the other person? Can you understand what they want? And can you find a way to meet that so you can do something together? Like that's all it is. So like empathy
Right.
and emotional stability is like the biggest things. And then I've been worrying about this a lot because I keep like recently there was like no teenager in the house, and I was just like, my God, all the things I have to worry about. And I'm not gonna name their names if they're listening, like whatever. But like school violence, like school shooting and stuff. There was like a TikTok where there was a people playing volleyball, just having a nice day, and then all of a sudden, like you hear people screaming. It's like, my God, imagine just going about your day. You're playing volleyball with your friends, and now you have to worry about this thing or that thing or all these different things. COVID, now you don't know how to socialize and communicate. Like, just it feels like. And I was going to ask you this on like a meta thing that's just in my head. Like, how parents and kids changed over the years. It seems like the kids today, they have all access to this technology, but they have like there's just all this other weighted stuff on there that comes down to I feel like what we're talking about is like this emotional development. Like that's the key. I feel like if we could push that domino forward, it would cause a cascade of like just so many different things getting better. But it's something that I think a lot of people, like I know many business leaders that think empathy is like, no, I have to be evil businessman. I'm going to steal from everybody and knife them. It's like, all right, you notice that no one wants to work with you.
Right.
Only
At
people
some
want to
point,
use
you
you.
lose.
You like that
Yeah.
feeling? Yeah. It's like the I always tell people like the evilest thing you can do is just treat people well. Do you want to go far in life? Just treat people with love and respect. Like your life will be so much better because then people treat you that way. Does that feel great? But I know a lot of people when they think of these things, they think they're superfluous. But imagine like the kids we're talking about at 18, never being taught these skills. Like
Yeah.
that's terrible. And then they have to go and join the workforce, and the people are like, "Oh, I explained this thing to someone, but they're not getting it." Well, because they don't have the skills internally to know how to get it.
Right.
And then I know, like, I used to work at Walmart, and this was I don't know, like 15 years ago. So this is like maybe when you first started teaching. But I would routinely hear parents talking to their kids as if they were adults. Like the kid would like, "Yeah, I think this paper towel is better than this one," and the parent would be like, "Yeah, because I'm a fucking idiot and I don't know which one to buy." And like the kid doesn't know. The kid doesn't know. He's just offering things. He's just talking, and the kid was just like, "Oh," it's like it's so sad because the kid was just trying to be nice. Because so I imagine now with all these new stresses coming on, that's probably happening a lot more. Like people are expecting a lot from kids and
Yeah.
talking to them in a way because they don't have the social regulation as well to know like
Yeah.
the kid is different. And that's like when I interact with kids, is like I'll ask my wife, is this a question I should be answering? Because I don't know. If you ask me a question, I have like the tendency of like just answering anything.
Yeah.
So then I was asked like, "Hey, Amy, is this like appropriate like bandwidth of things to answer?" Because
Right.
I will just answer anything. But I know it just sounds like there's a lot of complexity right now, and like there's the school shooter element, there's like the not having emotional regulation, and it just seems like if we could get to like selfishly to work on the empathy side of things and then build from there, how many things would be better? How can you learn if you don't feel safe? Like what you were saying earlier, how can like everyone's basically on a small level. People always say like, "What age are you?" Like, "Why don't you act your age?" or whatever. I think everyone's all their ages at once, and then you just kind of pick your
They
flavor.
are all their
But
ages at once. You're
yeah.
so right.
Yeah, so then everyone is that 5-year-old going into class for the first time, and the safety totem, like their parents, is leaving. Like that's all life. They're going into a new domain. You're learning something new. Like that feeling, that experience is happening every day, all the time, but people aren't being taught how to adapt to it. But it seems like the most selfish thing we can do is support what you're doing and this type of work because it'll teach the kids better, and then at the same time you're teaching the parents. Like you're like hitting like the whole spectrum with what you're doing.
Yeah. Trying.
Yeah.
And it's very true. I think empathy is just, I go on an airplane and actually be kind and pleasant to the flight attendants. They will be shocked. I've had flight attendants say, "You're so nice. Everybody on here is so mean. They're all yelling at me. I'm just going to come back and stand with you." People are scared. They're anxious. They've got whatever on their minds. Financially, life is pretty scary. Sometimes you take that out on the world. It's on your face, it's in your attitude, it's in your voice as you go through the world, right? And then you ruin everybody else's day. And everybody else kind of puts their guard up and aren't relaxed. So I think if it were widespread, be a lot happier in the world. I could say that.
Yeah. I think people would do better. I think people would have, like you're saying, happier lives, would be more productive lives. Because when they,
absolutely,
yeah, because then they could say, "Hey, I'm not feeling well. I need help," and I know how to talk and ask Tara for help, or someone like Tara for help. Where a lot of time, especially like in classes with, like the age group you're dealing with, like a lot of people see people like that, and they don't think I'm going to protect them. Some people look at that age group and think I'm going to be an evil person, and so it's like if they don't feel safe enough to tell you, and they're already in an environment where it's kind of like forcing them to not feel safe, like how are we going to help those people? So I don't know. I think we're all like in agreement. Like we need more empathy, empathy, and
how do we do it?
And yeah, how do we do it? I don't know, it seems like it should be like an experiential thing. I think that like give everyone like 2 weeks with you, over like or like a month with you, over like a summer break. Like there's Janine Davis.
Credit here.
Yeah, Janine Davis on the West Coast. She does EQ type stuff similar to you. I feel like she works with wolves to help people like open these things up. And I just wonder if like you two sat down and like made like a program, like parents, everyone could come out and learn these skills together. I've wondered if like we should just like kind of give every student like a psychologist essentially to help them. And it like the primary thing I was thinking of was just like understanding how to handle your emotions.
Yep. Oh my gosh, the little ones come to you screaming, they're in pain emotionally, they can't tell you why. Oh, I had a little boy one time who he just hit, and I'm little and he was big at 5, and he would just beat me up, and it was just pure fear. He couldn't process the world. And so what I did was I would sit on the ground and say, actually this time was much shorter. We did better this time. This was good. And next time it's going to be even shorter. How do you, it's a touch right here. How do you feel in here? What does this feel like? This hurts. What is this? Are you? And then you give them words, and then they copy what your words are. And you continue to help them understand, and you'll have kids come up at 5, I feel frustrated. Great, I am so happy. All right, now let's deal with the frustration. But being able to understand that you are having an emotion. It's not just pain in your body. It's not just this uncontrollable issue. If kids are screaming, something is wrong inside their head. Something doesn't feel good, and they need help figuring out what it is. So, and then naming it. And then after you do that, then we teach them skills of, all right, let's see what works. Let's see what helps you feel less frustrated. Talking to someone about this. You're sad. What helps you? You're scared. Should we try our breathing or our counting again? Should we look at pictures that we know make us happy? Should we go and have a moment to draw to kind of get those feelings out? But we teach them those skills to, right? So it's a process. But you've got to start with, they don't know what emotion they're feeling. All they know is it doesn't feel good. You go from there and you build up. And it's by the end of the year, they are telling you exactly how they feel every second of the day, whether you're teaching reading or not. They'll be yelling it out. But it's very empowering for them.
That's what I was going to say. It sounds very empowering. Like for not just the kids, but also the parents.
The parents, yes.
Yeah. Because if they can see it, then they can kind of feel it. I imagine like just coming home and that difference, like just how that would feel as a parent. But for parents, it seems like you've kind of gotten all the generations. I imagine you've gone through like 4 different generations, because people have kids at different ages. So like I imagine you have like, you might have some baby boomers in there, but like you're primarily probably like hitting like the millennials now. Are millennials doing anything different or unique compared to the other generations? Like it can be like good or bad. I don't like typically associate like those type of terms, but I'm just kind of curious. Are there generational differences in how people are approaching parenting? I hear people make this joke that apparently like men, like for millennials, like a guy caring and being involved with the kids is like the biggest deal for people. Apparently the previous generations, someone was telling me this, that there used to be like a PSA. They would send it to a baby boomer saying like, hug your kids. They need to be hugged. Stop yelling. Stop yelling. I don't know if that's true. I've heard this is true.
It is so true. All
yeah.
of that is so true. And it has changed. So yeah, in 17 years, I'm in my 50s. When I started, and it's New York City, so people have babies much older in New York City than in probably any other part of the country. So being a 40-year-old new mom is normal. But they were older than I am, so they're in their probably late 60s now, many of the parents. Parents I have now are in their 40s. And then I do have some who are in their 30s. I've had parents who are in their 20s. The parents now, dads are, to me, the love is you can see it. It's tactile. They hug their kids. They hold their kids. They feel these emotions. And I don't know if it's because I'm New York City or because I'm in the neighborhood where I'm teaching in, and I'm sure it's very different if you go to different parts of the country. But things have changed. Unfortunately, I do think that parents now, they want their kid to be happy. They don't necessarily know how to do it. And so putting a screen in front of their hands or giving in when they scream for something or trying to be their best friend, that's more typical of the generation of parents now versus 15, 20 years ago where no, I said no, and that is no. I mean, when I grew up, forget it. You were not your parents' friend. You were the adult. They were the adult. You were the child. You respected adults. You followed rules, to good or bad. So I like some of both pieces of the generation, but I do think wanting to be their friend and feeling that guilt, and then what you give them actually ends up making it worse. But they're doing it out of a love and out of a need. They just may not be doing it in a way that benefits their child or them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like it's like rubber banding. It's like if your parent beat you a lot, so now you don't discipline your kid at all, and it's like, well, discipline's good. It's just like maybe don't beat them. Like right,
there's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
but don't give them cookies when they cry.
And my wife and I were recently discussing this, and we were like, if we had kids, how do we is beating acceptable? And she was like, no, we shouldn't do that. She's like, yeah, like you're already like 12 times the size of a child. Like you raising your voice is like the most terrifying thing to a kid. Because I think a lot of parents see other people, like, so they think that that's normal. They don't realize like the kid, like you're like a giant. Like no one realizes they're huge anymore. Like to a kid, you're like Colossus. You're like one of those giant one-eyed Cyclops people. So you raise your voice enough. Well, I put them in timeouts enough. Like, I don't think there's an avenue where there's been any studies that say like spankings or anything are useful for kids. Has there been is it conclusive yet? Like it's completely gone?
I mean, hitting, how would you like it if somebody was unhappy with you and they walked over and smacked you in the face? Are you ever going to want to be with them again? Where's the trust, right? Yeah. Now, if you're about to put your hand on a burning stove, okay, boom, whack the hand out of the way. Do whatever you need to do to get them away from danger. Or if they're crossing the street, yes, grab them and pull them back. But I don't need to yell. It's interesting. In my classroom, but also with my kids, my tone is almost always like this. Like it's fun and we're laughing, whatever, but you will follow my directions. And that's it. These are the rules. Here they are. We've talked about them. We've danced about them. We've read them. We have them on here. You will follow the directions. And I have a voice where if I get serious, everybody stops. Okay. I don't need to do more than that. Teachers don't need to lose it. I mean, I can have complete control of a classroom, control being they all quiet down and look. I can have that with my voice not being raised above that. But that's a respect you earn. But I could go into a 5th grade classroom and have the same thing. I have a strong voice, but then then you look for ways to bring the kids in and interest them and whatever. But hitting, never. Just it's not going to do what you want it to do. It's your frustration and your inability to know exactly how to handle the situation. And we all get frustrated, and we've all probably whacked and my child when they were little or something, and just realizing, oh God, no, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's coming from me, my need that I'm not meeting, not really what they're doing.
For the fifth graders, you can like walk straight in and speak, and they'll respect it. I was thinking like with the kids you have, it's like you've already shown them there's someone to listen because you listen to them, so you have like that relationship that does it. I think sometimes people expect. I was thinking about this the other day, like when I see people who expect a certain relational status to their kids, like how they expect their kids to treat them because they had to treat their parents a certain way. It's like, well, what did your parents do to earn that from you that you're just expecting you get? And then how do you think that would be different if you're a kid and they're expecting something but they're not doing the things that you respect in your parents to make them feel that way? So I was wondering if like it. So my question is like, you can just walk into a fifth grade class, they don't know you, and you can like speak and they'll listen. Because that's pretty cool. Like I would assume like, yeah, it's like if you have the established relationships, like you've kind of like shown that you deserve that.
Yeah, I think I'm little, but I'm mighty. And so I can walk into a room and say, eyes on me. Boom. All right, great. So this is what we're going to, sorry.
Yeah.
Have you met me? My name's Tara. You're going to listen. So sit down. Okay. Now we go. So there's just an element of how much control do I need to exert? You do the minimal amount. Fifth graders are probably going to need more. But you'll see all their friends will go, shh, she's talking, shh.
Is there a difference between how like a guy kid and a girl kid? Because I heard that like kids, like guy kids, like to bounce a lot, like we have like a lot of energy, but then just saying like, oh, like their boys will be boys and just let them run isn't the best, because you still should teach them how to like rein in those feelings. So is there like a gender based difference in how to raise kids? Like, should you treat them differently? Like, oh, a woman should be treated this way? I guess it's a larger question that might get us in trouble. But I'm just generally curious in terms of like how kids act. Do you regulate a kid that's bouncing around, and do you like if a girl's naturally empathetic, do you like teach them to bounce around? Like, how do you like complement the different like things that seem to be happening for the genders?
If a kid is bouncing around, they have a need for stimuli. So do you need a bouncy chair? Do you need to stand in the back of the rug while I'm teaching and do jumping jacks? What do you need? Do you need a 15-minute big body workout? I'm talking especially kids. Go outside with the occupational therapist and they do their wall push-ups and they run their laps and they come back and they tell me all about it. Okay, now they're ready to sit. But if they're jumping around, there's a need. I know when I was growing up and when I started teaching boys, girls, people thought of them differently. I don't call them boys and girls anymore. They're people, they're learners, they're students, I call them chicken nuggets, which they absolutely die for every single time I say it, which is ridiculous because you think they'd stop laughing after like the 25th time. But I've never done anything based on boys over here, girls over there. I don't line them up that way. I grew up with two sisters and a mother, all very strong women, very, very strong women. And my father, who I just absolutely adore, such a sweetheart. And both of my parents were teachers, and he would tell me, the girls are amazing. And he was a high school teacher, so smart, have the answers up until a certain grade. And then they sit back and let the boys just go. And it's a confidence issue. And it's because we've said, oh, boys are successful in this and girls in that. And it's just not true. It's kids are built how they're built, so there's nature and nurture going on no matter what. And I do see boys jumping around probably more than I see some girls, but I don't act on it. I don't purposefully, someone taught me a few years back, just let them naturally become who they are. A boy comes in with nail polish on. Oh, I love the glitter on that one. Boy comes in with, a child comes in whose name was Jack and now wants to be called Jill. I tread very lightly. It's not my place to tell anybody what they are,
Yeah.
right? Other than being a human being and a chicken nugget.
I chicken nugget tue.
You're a chicken nugget too.
Yeah, I like it. It's funny. But yeah, I guess I have like the humor of a child, but I guess the chicken nugget makes
So
me
do
laugh.
I. It's horrible.
Yeah.
You say the
Yeah,
word ball,
yeah.
and I will laugh every time. I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
a 13-year-old boy at heart. Everything fine. I find everything funny. So.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna use chicken nugget in conversation later today.
Oh, you chicken nugget.
Yeah, no, I'm using that from now on. I know before we were recording, we were talking about like what's the future? Should people go to community college and then university, and like or trades and stuff like that? But there was so Ben Franklin when he was a kid, I think he was about the age of your kids. His dad took him to a bunch of different apprenticeships where he could see like how he could be apprenticeship for candle making or bricklaying or et cetera, et cetera. Do you think about like the kids and like where they could go at your age as well in terms of like helping them decide is like college something, community college, etc., or experimenting with a trade, or like, or even from like a parent perspective, how could a parent like do that Ben Franklin thing for their kids so they could see more what they like career wise what they could be good at?
I just think that's the answer right there.
Hmm.
I wish I had seen so many different worlds and lives. And I think our kids in high school, everybody's being pushed towards college. And I understand it. It sounds magical and wonderful, but what are the expectations? Let's look 10 years from now. What do you really love doing? Where are your skills? How do you learn? What field do you think would be interesting? Let's look at that. And I think if they could take the whole, oh, college is everything, which it's not, and look at the world and all of the types of jobs and work that can be done. And if you can meet more people in different fields and try to get a feel for that before choosing, it would just be so much better. I think. I just think it's ridiculous to have people spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on college if their kid really has difficulty learning in an environment like that and would be incredible, with boat engineering or whatever it would be. It doesn't matter, but I think if we could figure out, we could help the children figure out what they really love, what their skills are, it'd be so much better. I mean, there's a lot of really unhappy lawyers in the world, right? There's a lot of unhappy teachers in the world. You go into a field because you think you're supposed to.
Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting if I think of it like the Socratic method. So with like Socrates, not like Socratic, like figuring out like questions by asking questions circuitously, but the like having people who are passionate about the subject material talk to you about what it's like. So if people wanted to try out like have like a curriculum, like a brown bag thing, where like I'm a teacher, I'm going to come in here and show you what that's like, or I'm a nurse, I'm going to show you what that's like, talk to you about it, and so people can kind of experience it through their passion. I imagine that'd be like a pretty good use case for VR. Like you could like actually like literally like walk people through like a virtual environment, especially for like the medical stuff, because I doubt you want like kids making medical diagnoses and stuff. Like it might be too stressful because people need to feel safe and then experience what it's actually like. I think that the problem is like people always assume like it's college that gets you to that future. I think my college, 60% of graduates made less than high school graduates. And it was like, why did anyone go here? Why did anyone go here? And then, well, it's also like, there's a lot of them that are teachers, but then they stop being teachers after a couple of years. They start becoming like principals and stuff and doing other things. And it seems that like that the principals get paid more or whatever. But then there's also like Illinois is having some pretty good teachers unions that are coming up that are getting teachers more pay and respect that they need. Because I've seen like what the average pay in Illinois is for teachers. It's like I don't know how people survive like that. So it makes sense that like you do this, you're getting all the stress, you're trying to learn all these new things, handle the parents, handle the kids, handle the other teachers, all this stuff. That's a lot. And then also you're making less than high school workers. Like how some high school graduates. Like how can you encourage great people like yourself to want to do that with all that hitting them at the same time? That seems like really ridiculous. Is there have you seen anything, either in New York or otherwise, that's making it easier for people to want to stay teachers? Because it just seems like, from the outside, that a lot of people are leaving, and the ones that leave are probably really great ones like yourself, who are just like, I'm not getting the support I need, and And then you're left with teachers that are like, a lot of my teachers growing up did not want to have the teaching job, so I don't know why they did it, other than it's just all they had at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, narrowed down. Do you want to be a nurse, a teacher, or a whatever? And okay, I guess I'll choose that. I think that I forgot what I was just going to say, actually. I was listening to you going. First of all, our union is very, very strong, and so I do feel quite secure in that. I can tell you that I'm an incredibly hard worker. I do have that work ethic, and I will kill myself. I'll do too much. But I'm tired. I'm really tired. And it's not a fault of the administration. It's not a fault of the children. It's not a fault of the parents. It's the expectations on teachers right now just continue to expand. I have 8 hours of work after my school day is done. I can't get any of the paperwork and the meetings, and I have to do all of I have to fill in all the data, and none of that gets done during my day. And just when you think, okay, I'm treading water, I'm surviving, I can handle everything I'm supposed to handle. Oh, and here's another curriculum we want you to add in, because social emotional is important. Great. Let's not find time in the day to fit it. Let's just throw another curriculum at teachers and say, you got to add this in too, without it necessarily being valuable. So it's too much. It's too much. I don't blame teachers for leaving. I think it's really sad. I think expectations are just way too high on what we can physically do. And I would say for anybody to truly understand that, come teach with me for a week. We'll see if you're standing. Like, it is not for the faint. For any teacher, it is so exhausting mentally, physically, and I love it. So this is somebody who loves it, who wants to do it, but I will eventually be pushed out of this field.
How do you handle, you've been doing it for 17 years. I feel like your mental strength has got to be like, titanium strong to take 17 years to feel tired. I'm sure you felt tired throughout, but it's like your mental strength has got to be like plutonium. Like, you probably like a power nuclear reactor or something. But so how do you do the self-care side of it? Like, if it's like you have a full work day and then you have 8 hours, like, I just feel like you go to bed numb every day and then wake up and it's like, oh, I got to do my Shakespearean play today. But I'm just like, I don't have any other elegant question other than just like, how do you handle your self-care, your mental health? How do you take care of yourself? Because I imagine it's really hard to find love on your own end, like dating or whatever, if like you're working like 100 hours a week and you're tired at the other times and you just want to sleep or whatever.
I think, I come home from school and I'm just, it's really funny. Can I eat pasta in bed at 6:30? Can I go to sleep by 7? I don't know. I think that your emotional health is so important. I have tremendous friends who I adore. I have a partner who I adore. My co-teacher has made all the difference in the world to me. So now I teach, it's called ICT, an integrated classroom of half of the kids have special needs, but pretty high functioning, and half of the kids are general education. And then there's two teachers. And I've worked with her, we're going in our 5th year, I think. It just tremendous. Like, she's an incredible teacher and we have such different skills. And so I love it because we learn from each other constantly, but that emotional support's there, and she's a workhorse and she's so smart. So if at the end of the day she's exhausted and I look at her and we just go, oh God, we survived today. I don't know. It fills you up to realize that somebody else who you completely respect is going through it as well with you. Okay, I'm not crazy. I know at the end of the year, I know at the end of the week, I get such tremendous feedback from families, from kids. I see their whole lives change, so that feeds me. That keeps me going. But I think that for teachers, their emotional health is really shaky. Yeah. There's just there's not enough support, and not through not wanting to support teachers. I really don't think there's, a mayor out there saying, let's screw teachers. Yes, let's make them feel bad. They all want things to go well. And they're trying, and they have some counseling help in the union, and they've got different things that they offer. Our medical care is amazing. But teachers just aren't doing well emotionally. We're just not. It's too much.
Yeah, it sounds like the big boon to you is the love that you have for your profession. So it doesn't sound like that you do necessarily, like when you come home, like 15 minutes meditation or any strategies like that. It just seems to like strengthen character.
Meditation would be great. I was just talking to my father on the phone, and he's like, baby, I found that meditation is very good. Dad, I'm going to try that again. Because I did. There was a time where I was commuting on the train, and I was commuting into the city. So I was adding 3 to 4 hours a day onto my day. And I would work on the train and all. But by the time I got off the train, I would just be crying. Like you just have all of this emotion that's got to come out. Mm-hmm. So now it's, I'm renting a place near where I work so that I can. Life's so different. I leave work when it's light out, and I come home and it's still light out, and then I have friends, and that has boosted my mood tremendously. So I'm trying really hard. My sister was great at kind of analyzing my life and saying, this is too hard. This is how you make it easier. Stop that commute. Do this for yourself. You need that. Buy that for yourself. Stop doing laundry. Send it out. It's great to have somebody who's realistic and just able to kind of take it apart and say, let's figure out how to make your life easier. But I definitely need to be very cognizant of that.
Meditation's fun. It's one of those things that I'm trying to get on too. I know that if you do it even just for like a week consistently, apparently it's really great for you. But then it's just like, oh my god, 15 minutes. I don't know. But
it's
exactly
like what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
I watch a lot of bad reality TV. I don't know.
Yeah. Is it like SVU?
NCIS.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what my wife watches. Like a lot of the people with creative type people like yourself, I think they just like the SVU procedural stuff. And I'm always like, you're watching this, and then you're walking around, during the day. It's like, how are you not scared all the time? It's like, how you not have nightmares? It's like, oh no, it's nice. I know it's gonna get wrapped up, is what she says. So it's like,
I love it. I love the procedural part. They figure it all out. And
yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. And then, if you try it out and it works, I'll try and send you the app that I'm using. I use it off and on. It does feel great when you're doing it. That is true. I'm just inconsistent.
Getting to do it.
Yes, it's like setting the timer.
Have to say,
yeah, I think probably like you have to trick yourself. It's like have like a time of the day where it's like 15 minutes. And it's like, well, I'm gonna sit down for 15 minutes, and if I don't do anything, it's just I can try and do it. And don't you deserve 15 minutes just for yourself? I think that you gotta like trick yourself for that. Like look at all the work you do. Like you deserve like 15 minutes. Yeah. I don't know how to. That's what I'm thinking. Like how do I trick myself. So I'm trying to give you like any thoughts that I've had.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try it.
Yeah, I literally, apparently, like 1 week is enough to make like a big difference. And then the big difference is like you notice your emotions and stuff more. But it seems like you'd be pretty in touch with your emotions too. So like, I'd be very curious to see what happens with someone who like is like yourself, who's like a super empathetic person. Like what benefits you'd get if it makes you like even greater. That'd be pretty cool. But for future stuff, I always ask people these questions. So one thing I always ask is, do you have any books, any recommendations that you check out? I recommend people check out. You can recommend them straight to me. I will read anything you say. I'm always looking for new things to read. If you're not reading, you're just SVUing it up, that's fine too. You can recommend a TV show.
I am doing a lot of podcasts on how to teach reading and looking at, trying to prep for my next year and how I want to teach and all of that. I've got nothing good. I would love some great book recommendations. I am with you. I am SVUing it up. But I go through phases where I read a lot and love it, and then phases where my brain's just like, I'll listen to it on a podcast when I was driving home or on the train. I go up and down with it. Yeah. But it's so funny. It's all self-care too, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're reading something that can then help you kind of regulate your emotional health, and that could be anything. It doesn't have to be academic. It can be anything, but it's just starting it. It's not that I don't have 15 minutes, but it's the starting of it and saying, yes, I deserve this. I need this time for me.
Yeah, I know a friend who has like ADHD. It's the one where like you can't focus, and they said that the thing that helps them is they'll say, "I'll do it for 30 seconds," or "I'll do like the smallest little bit. I'll sit down and do it." And apparently, you can't ever do something just for 30 seconds. You start doing it for more, and that's how they just gotta like start the steamroll. So maybe it's like instead of like 15 minutes, it's like, "Can I sit down for 30 seconds?"
That's true.
Let's see how that works.
See,
Yeah,
that would get me. That
yeah,
I could do. I could do 5 minutes of anything.
yeah. And then, is there a genre you're looking for? Usually, like listeners send me recommendations and stuff, or I'll send you some recommendations on things to learn.
I would love that. Send me anything.
Just anything? Okay.
Yep, I'm in.
All right. And then, what would be so if there's someone out there who's thinking about becoming a teacher, who's doing something else, and what you spoke about today really moved them? Is there any advice you'd give them to know if teaching is right for them? Is it just like maybe like contact a school and see if you can shadow someone? Or what advice would you give on that front?
You want to be in a classroom because teaching is completely different in an elementary school level, even on kindergarten versus fifth grade. Middle school level, like my daughter teaches, which is, I think, the hardest thing in the entire world. High school level, college level. Do you want to work with students who have different kinds of needs, or students who are exceptional in this area and need tremendous growth? You don't know. You don't know what you're going to be good at. You don't know what's going to kind of grab you. So definitely the shadowing. I've had many student teachers over the years. I love my student teachers. I keep in touch with all of them, most of them anyway, I think. And I've had just parents, not parents even of my own of students, but in the school, because their kids all come home and know our class. So these parents will all reach out to me. Oh, I've got a niece who's interested. Can they come and visit? I've got a nephew who wants to learn more. It's pretty cool. I mean, I've I had a mom whose son was, I don't know, 23, 24, had no idea what he wanted to do. And she just said, he needs some direction in his life. Can he just come talk to you about teaching? So he came and spent the day and loved it, and then applied to a program to get his teaching license, and he went into the field, and it's really cool. I think, to me, that's the only way to know if you're going to love it, because, man, you spend the money to go to school to get your degree, to start doing it, and then you hate it.
Yeah.
But shadowing is absolutely the right thing to do.